Some people's hobby is putting on makeup and some like to shop for clothes. I love to spend my free time making sweets. This is Sara's Sweet Addiction. Hi, this is Sara from Sara's Sweet Addiction, and today we're going to be making red velvet cupcakes, which is a recipe that's adapted from the red velvet cake recipe in the Complete Magnolia Bakery Cookbook. The ingredients that you'll need to make this recipe include cake flour, granulated sugar, salt, baking soda, and unsweetened cocoa powder. For our wet ingredients, we're going to be using red food coloring, vanilla extract, apple cider vinegar, eggs, buttermilk, and butter. For the tools to make the recipe, we're going to be using a muffin tin, cupcake liners. I'm using an ice cream scoop to put my batter in the cupcake tin, but you can use spoons, spatula, whisk, and something to mix your batter. I'm using a stand mixer, but you could also use a hand mixer. We're going to start with our cake flour. You're going to sift 3 1/3 cup of cake flour, which is also 410 grams. I've already pre-sifted it, so I'm going to set it off to the side and move on to our second step, which is creaming our butter and our sugar. I have right here 3/4 cup of unsalted butter, which is also 165 grams. I'm using unsalted butter so that I can control the amount of salt in my recipe. I also have 2 1/4 cups of granulated sugar, which is also 440 grams of sugar. All you're going to do to cream your butter and your sugar is to put them in the stand mixer, turn it on to medium speed, and then let it go until it's light and fluffy. That should take approximately 5 minutes. For our next step, we're going to add our eggs one at a time and incorporate fully after adding each one into our KitchenAid. Here goes the first egg. Turn it on low so it doesn't splatter all over everything. Now I'm adding my second egg and my third and final egg. Again, mixing until it's fully incorporated. Perfect. This is what your batter is going to look like after you've incorporated all 3 of the eggs into it. After you finish doing that, we're going to move on to our next step, which is combining our 4 tablespoons or 55 grams of red food coloring with 3 tablespoons or 20 grams of unsweetened cocoa powder and 1 1/2 teaspoons or 6 grams of vanilla. We're going to combine these 3 ingredients into a small mixing bowl and then mix to combine. Now that it's combined, we're going to add that mixture into our batter. This is what it looks like when you've added your red food coloring and cocoa mixture to your batter. Now that we've done that, we're going to add our salt to our buttermilk. We already have 1 1/2 cups or 320 grams of buttermilk in a measuring cup, and to that we're going to add 1 1/2 teaspoons or 9 grams of salt. You're just going to pour it in and then mix to combine. Now that your buttermilk and salt are combined, we're going to be adding our cake flour and our buttermilk mixture into our batter in 3 additions, alternating cake flour and then our buttermilk. Make sure that you scrape your bowl down before you've finished mixing everything in, just to make sure everything is incorporated. There's always a little bit of flour on the side of the bowl and on your beater. You'll want to make sure that everything is included. This is what our batter should look like after we've mixed everything together. And now we're going to add together our apple cider vinegar and our baking soda. We have 1 1/2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar, also 12 grams, and 1 1/2 teaspoons of baking soda, or 7 grams. We mix them together in a bowl and stir together. Now that everything is mixed, we're going to pour it into our batter and combine. So now that your batter is completely mixed, we're going to put all of our cupcake liners into our cupcake tins. I've already finished most of them. There's our last one. And you're going to scoop your batter into your cupcake liners. Here are our cupcake tins completely filled. And now we're going to put them in a preheated oven to 350 degrees to bake. Here they are, the finished red velvet cupcakes. These took about 22 minutes to bake in my oven. It might be a little bit different in your oven depending on how hot or cold it cooks. Just make sure that if you insert a toothpick into the middle that it comes out clean, and that means it's done. Typically, a red velvet cupcake is covered with a cream cheese icing. I'm going to be showing you how to decorate these cupcakes using a white chocolate and cream cheese icing. I'm making a white chocolate cream cheese frosting, which is the recipe from Rose's Heavenly Cakes titled Dreamy Creamy White Chocolate Frosting. The ingredients that we're going to use today: white chocolate, I'm using one with cocoa butter, sour cream, almond extract, cream cheese, and butter. The tools that I'll be using today: a double boiler. I'm using just a saucepan with a little bit of water in the bottom and a bowl on top, spatula, and a food processor. To get started, we're going to put all of our white chocolate into the double boiler and then move our double boiler over to the stove. In the bowl, we have 170 grams of white chocolate. We're going to be stirring approximately every 15 seconds until it starts to melt. As you can hopefully see, there's still a few little chunks, but it's almost completely melted. A few important things to keep in mind when you are using a double boiler. When you're filling up the pot, you really only need about an inch, maybe 2 in the bottom of the pot, and you want to make sure that it's not touching the bottom of the bowl. Also, this is on medium-low heat so that the chocolate doesn't seize. This is looking pretty good. I'm going to take this off and finish the melting on my table. I just brought my white chocolate over from the stove. As you can see, it's completely melted. I'm going to leave it here on my workstation until it is cooled to room temperature, and then I'll be adding it into my frosting. In order to finish the frosting, I need to add in some of my other ingredients. We're going to start with an 8 ounce or 226 grams of cream cheese and add it to the food processor. 4 tablespoons or 56 grams of butter. Last but not least, I'll be putting in 1 tablespoon, which is 14 grams of sour cream, into my mixture as well. Once everything's in the food processor, I just put the lid on, turn it on, and mix until fully incorporated. Okay, so we've mixed our cream cheese and our butter in our food processor, and our white chocolate has cooled at room temperature. It is still liquidy, so it's still able to be poured, and it's relatively cool to the touch. It's not going to melt our butter. So I'm going to pour this into my food processor, and then in order to combine it, I'm going to pulse multiple times. We just finished making the majority of the frosting. This is what it's going to look like when it's fully incorporated. You're not getting any streaks of cream cheese in the mixture or streaks of white chocolate as well. Now that it's all added in here, the last step is just to add a little bit of almond extract for flavoring. We have 1/4 teaspoon of almond extract. You add it right into the food processor, and then we pulse a couple of times to combine. That's it. We're completely finished with our frosting. You can use this to frost cupcakes, cakes, or even eat it with a spoon. Now that the frosting is finished, I'm going to show you how to decorate a cupcake with it. The first thing that you're going to need is a piping bag. I'm using a disposable piping bag, but you can also get reusable piping bags at a craft store. Then you're going to take a tip and you're going to put it into the bag and push it all the way down to the bottom of the bag. You're doing this so that you can see where you need to cut your bag so that your frosting can come out. As you can see here, this is going to give me enough room that my frosting can come out, but my tip won't fall out of my bag. So I'm going to cut it right there and then push my tip out. What I'm doing right now is pushing the tip far enough so that it's tight against the edges of the bag. You want it tight on the plastic or your bag so that the icing doesn't come out of the sides of the bag. Now you're going to open the bag so that you can put your frosting into it. To do that, you just pull down the sides of the bag until it's about halfway. You want it about halfway so that there's enough space for your frosting, but there's also enough of the bag at the top so that the frosting doesn't come out of the top. You hold on to the bag and then you put the frosting inside. Now that all of your frosting is in your bag, you're going to push your frosting down by first pulling up the edges of the bag and then using your fingers to just push the frosting towards the tip until you see the frosting come just to the tip, or the very top of your tip, rather. Then to close the bag, you're going to close your fingers and twist. You want to make sure that the top is closed so that the frosting doesn't come out of the top. Now, we're going to ice the cupcake. If you find that your frosting is a little too runny, it's been sitting at room temperature for a while, and the butter can get a little bit soft, you can pop it in the fridge, and that'll make it a little bit more stiff so that you can frost. Now to do this cupcake, I'm going to be doing some swirls. So I'm going to start at the outside, work my way in. I'm going to do a big circle, come inside to the middle, and then pull up to the top. And I get a nice cupcake looking swirl. I'm going to do this for a couple more cupcakes, and then I'll be back. And here they are, our finished decorated cupcakes. And now it's time for my favorite part, which is getting to eat what I've made. Okay, let's try it. Yum. The red color of this cake looks so pretty next to the white frosting. And the cake is delicious, and it's moist and chocolatey, and it pairs perfectly with the sweetness of the white chocolate cream cheese frosting. The only thing that's missing, a glass of milk. Thanks guys for watching my video. I really hope you loved the red velvet cupcakes with the white chocolate cream cheese frosting. If you did, hit the subscribe button so you can see all of my future videos. If you have any questions or requests for future videos, leave them in the comment section below. You can also find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Pinterest. I'd really love to hear from you. And remember, make sweets. See you later.